Today has been the first and last spring budget for Philip Hammond. With the triggering of Article 50 pending, it was perhaps realistic not to expect a great deal from the budget, with a view that once the Article 50 is triggered, there'll be many implications for the cost of decoupling the UK from Europe. Equally, the economy is doing better than predicted post-Brexit, with tax revenues up and growth outcomes higher than forecast. Perhaps the UK is in a better place than certainly most people expected after June last year. It seems today the message to take away from the budget was that it was about stabilising the UK economy, getting ourselves fighting fit to deal with life post-Brexit, and to ensuring that the competitive position of the UK is stronger with a highly productive workforce, investing in technology and skills. There seems to be three particular areas that we've picked up as a professional firm advising clients on the accountancy and taxation matters, and they were around research and development reliefs and tax credits, making tax digital, and also the proposals that, or discussion around the seemingly benefits that self-employed businesses and individuals have over employed people and business structures. So what I propose to do now is to go through those three topics, and I'm delighted to have Chris Connor with us, who's one of our corporate tax partners with our firm, to discuss those particular matters. First of all, we'll start with R&D tax credits and reliefs, which are the idea of helping businesses with research and development and how it enhances a business's performance. So, Chris, it's often overlooked what research and development tax reliefs are about, and businesses don't seem to claim them, but equally today he announced that he wants to give continued support for them. Perhaps you could outline what R&D tax credits are about and really what support that businesses can get.
Yeah, of course, James. Well, we don't know a great deal about what's coming following today's budget on R&D, but he did make a throwaway comment that he was going to try and simplify the process. R&D tax credits is a fantastic relief that gives relevant businesses that are doing, clever, innovative things in their marketplace an enhanced deduction of 230% against eligible costs. But I feel that a lot of businesses are put off from making the claim for the relief because it's quite cumbersome. It's quite difficult to get to grips with in terms of understanding the terminology and whether or not you're eligible and understanding what costs are eligible. And I think any simplification they can give us to sort of make this more accessible to the smaller business that will certainly help. A lot of businesses, as I say, are potentially put off from claiming R&D because their claim might not be huge and the cost can sometimes outweigh the benefit. So if we can sort of cut through some of the red tape around this relief, that would be much welcomed.
If we may now move on to making tax digital. The concept of making tax digital is around self-employed people doing quarterly digital filings of their tax affairs and accounts. Whilst it's still to come into effect, I think many business member organisations have lobbied for a deferral, certainly for smaller businesses, and no doubt today's announcement that those businesses that trade below the VAT threshold won't have to adopt digital quarterly returns until 2018, I'm sure is most welcome. But equally for those above the tax threshold, the challenges of making tax digital is no doubt going to be just that. And I'm sure whilst we welcome the deferral for smaller businesses, it equally is a challenge for some of our larger businesses going forward.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's been noises made by HMRC. This is all unwinding itself over a period of time, and we're getting to know the details slowly, piece by piece. But there was some sort of comment that they would defer entry into the new system for a certain type of business with a certain profile. So certainly welcome news today that they've effectively confirmed that they will use the VAT threshold as their sort of benchmark as to whether or not you come in or out of this regime in 2018 or 19. So if you have a turnover, if you are a self-employed individual or a landlord, or a sole trader with a turnover below the VAT threshold, which goes up effectively to 85,000 in April, then you effectively have another year's grace outside of this regime. which is certainly going to help, I think, because the measures being brought in to comply with tax digital are onerous.
And I think also, not least from a professional viewpoint, as a accounting firm looks supporting our clients, actually putting in systems and processes for the profession is a challenge in itself, and it's important that we make sure that we have the right things in place to support our clients. So I'm sure many accountancy firms welcome the deferral on the take-up of digital tax returns for smaller businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any time that we can have to sort of get, everybody needs to get up to speed with this. HMRC needs to get their systems in place to deal with it. Software houses need to get adequate software to enable us to make the transition. So anybody that can keep out of that regime for as long as possible, I'm sure they'll welcome it.
Now, if you may move on to his targeting of the self-employed, it's quite interesting over the last 10 years, the number of self-employed businesses has shot up, or people seeking self-employment or taking self-employment has gone up by some 20%. And it seems to be a growing trend, and I think the Chancellor's recognised that there seems to be some variation in the tax remuneration or advantages of those people being self-employed versus those people running their own businesses in an employed way. And it seems to be that he wants to target that. One of the moves might have been through the treatment or reduction in the dividends people can receive through a private limited company, and also the targeting of the NIC threshold or levels as well. Perhaps you could talk more about why you think he's doing that and what people might be thinking the impact will be.
Okay. Well, we've known for some time that the revenue do have an issue with this sort of different tax take on equivalent levels of income between the self-employed and the employed and companies. So we've known for a while that something's coming, and I suspect that we will have continued measures in this vein over coming sort of budgets. I think effectively we will find things sort of trimmed off the edges to try and align the tax system to get rid of effectively this differential between the employment self-employed status and the tax take. So one thing that they've announced today is effectively an increase in Class 4 national insurance, which will take effect from April next year. So that will go up from 9% to 10% in April 18, and then from 10% to 11% in April 19. That will sit sort of in line with the withdrawal of Class 2 national insurance contributions next year, effectively to try and plug that gap. What they are concerned about also, I think, is that the increased national insurance for self-employed might also tip people over the balance in terms of making that decision, should we incorporate or should we continue as a sole trader? Because as it stands at present, you can take, as a husband and wife company, if you plan effectively, you can take up to £44,000 out of a company without paying any tax at all. So obviously the HMRC have got that in their sights, and they're wanting to sort of try and discourage people from taking the incorporation route. So one of the things they've done today is effectively had a bit of a back step on the dividend allowance that they introduced last year. So last year they effectively got rid of the credit on dividends, but effectively gave every individual a £5,000 tax-free dividend allowance. I think they've sort of in hindsight realised that might be slightly too generous. So with effect from April next year, that £5,000 has been reduced down to £2,000 to try and counter the balance and hopefully deter people a little bit from jumping into incorporation with the increased denied burden that they're going to face as self-employed.
Overall, though, I think there was little else in the budget to give us great concern. Perhaps the good news, not least for many of our smaller businesses, was the approach with business rates, that there will be reliefs for business rates and support to ensure that the transition to the new business rates standard will be less severe, the impact of which I think is good news. Equally, I think the proposal to bring in T levels for young people 16 to 19, which is technical level qualifications, will help upskill the workforce. Which again must be welcome, as too must be the provision of the £2 billion for social care for the elderly, not least with an ageing population. Perhaps as ever, the concern is not necessarily today what he announced in the budget. It's more what he announced in the last budget or the autumn statement. And I think it seems to be the three areas that consideration in the next 12 months, obviously, apart from business structure, is the aspect of treatment of use of dividends, the targeting of buy-to-let and residential lettings, and also treatment of pensions, which is continue to be sort of have a mixed viewpoint of the incentive to actually people to get to put money aside for the latter life and retirement versus the tax take that it attracts to the revenue. Would that be a fair summation of the?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we have several sort of measures coming home to roost in the next number of months. Particularly, as you mentioned, the buy-to-let. That's going to hit certain landlords that are highly geared very, very hard. And as ever, it's a case of businesses being right on top of their remuneration strategy to make sure that they get the absolute best possible deal they can in terms of extracting profit from their company, so that they take the benefit of whatever is there.
I think overall, again, I think it's for me is the danger is people walk away from hearing a budget or don't bother to read the paper or seek advice, and they think the status quo is pretty much the same. And I think from a professional viewpoint, it must be to heed advice and seek advice. Otherwise, you might miss out on some key planning and some key strategies that could help improve your financial well-being and your business, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. As I say, so thank you, Chris. Further details of the budget announcements, including guides and videos and tax rates, are available on our website, which is www.streetsweb.co.uk. Also, you can download our app, Streets Eye Accountant, which has the latest tax rates and budget announcement on.